What's up, guys? So, as probably everyone out there knows, we, the United States of America, had our midterm elections yesterday, and it was a particularly interesting election because, of course, lately, with the current presidency, current atmosphere politically, it seems that people have a lot of mixed feelings on this. Um, Needless to say, we are very divided. And what I mean by that is that we cannot seem to arrive at a consensus as to what we want as people sometimes. And it seems really basic, but at the same time, it's complicated because there are so many interests involved. So I am going to break this down based on what I heard, observed, did, and how I feel overall. So, for starters, when the elections, of course, were being announced, like drawing closer to the date, a lot of people in my circle kept telling me that I should vote a certain way. And the specific way that I was being encouraged to vote was by saying, you should vote straight Democrat. Like my ballot should be completely Democrat. And I'm like, okay, I can sort of imagine why you would want to say that. And it seems like these days, the Democratic agenda is what's accepted most often as the one that seems to be the voice of reason, the one that is least racist, the one that's more just and fair for civilization, I guess. But for that, I would say, how about if I vote in the manner that suits my interests? Because I feel that what you're doing is okay. You are sharing with me what your thoughts and opinions and interests are, but you are completely dismissing the fact that I have my own personal opinion, and you're not even trying to get to know what my interests are, where I'm coming from. You're just making a huge assumption right there. So, how about if I examine the ballot, do my research ahead of time, pay attention to politics, and thus manifest? But when you just straight up tell me how I should do something, why? It almost sounds like you want me to benefit you with my votes. And I'm like, no, I need to figure out on my own what it is that I want, what it is that my interests are. So that was one thing that I heard a lot, to tell you the truth, both in person and online from what I was reading and from what some people would message me too from time to time. And then what I personally feel is that a lot of people aren't as informed as they should be. And then you hear the word voting and you immediately start making decisions. You get ready, you start voting, but you really don't know what you're doing. Like, I'll never forget this year's ballot, particularly because there were some amendments being proposed, right? And honestly, when you study the ballot, it sounds like something initially, but when you actually think about it critically, the meaning that is hidden within what they're proposing is pretty deep. So you have to really have done your research ahead of time and try to think about it and then make a decision. But you cannot just straight up be like, oh yeah, I am going to vote for or against this because it sounds like a good thing. No, you have to take your time, read the sentences, and truly interpret it because had I not been given a heads up, I would have wondered why I felt a little confused on some questions. And it helped to know that ahead of time because I knew what to expect. But imagine if I would have just followed what people told me about, for instance, you should vote completely Democrat. I'm like, no, I will vote however I feel that my interests are going to be addressed. And then what always gets me about voting in general is Why do people feel like you need to be bipartisan? Um, of course, these candidates in the midterms, they are already sort of like pre-selected for you. You really don't have a choice but to vote for what you see there or not vote for any of them at all. But particularly when it comes to the president, there is always a space that says that you can fill in who you want to win. But of course, a lot of people will not get together and have an agreement that's going to surpass the nominated candidates for certain parties. So I just wish that we would talk a little bit more about giving more of a say to the people, giving more power to the people, as opposed to just blindly following candidates that clearly never satisfy all of our beliefs. So I just wonder what will it take to make people get on the same page about that? Because I cannot believe that people literally look at candidates every single year and they say, yeah, that is my dream candidate. That is the guy or the woman who I want to represent me from A to Z. So, as opposed to having the attitude of, I'm going to vote for the lesser of the two evils, how about if you actually sort this out? Take your time and figure out what you can actually do. Because it's it's kind of whack for me that you just show up somewhere and you're like, oh no, I'm going to vote straight Republican or straight Democrat because that's what my family has always done. Or I feel really bad anytime I read a trend on social issues and the Democrats seem to be the voice of reason. I'm like, no, there is a lot of stuff that the Democrats need to be questioned on because they seem to be an everything goes party. And for me, in life, not everything can go. There needs to be a little bit of control of on some things. Some things are just not. What can I say? You should not just be light about it and tolerate absolutely everything. So, in my personal opinion, when it comes to voting, I learned this year that voting for everybody does not mean the same thing. And by that is there are groups of people in this country do not get addressed at all. They don't get mentioned at all. Nobody has an agenda for these groups of people. So why would those groups of people feel the minimum compellence, if that's a word, compellence, feeling compelled, to go out there and vote if none of their issues are being addressed? They're going to participate in the act of voting, but honestly, it's other groups of people who are going to benefit more than them. So if a candidate does not make a mention at all of anything that concerns you, why would you, as an individual, feel like you need to go out there and vote? I hear this every single year. Like they point at certain groups of people and they say, you need to get up and vote. Go out there and vote. Exercise your right. That, people back in so many years ago, they did not have the right to do that. Like women, you have only been voting for like 99 years. You need to go out there and vote. And, other races as well. Like they pick and choose. It's like, you're picking on certain people trying to call them out for their lack of involvement. And I'm like, no, the people who do not involve themselves, in a sense, I want to respect them because they are saying, you know what, nobody is talking in the manner that I need. No one is singing the tune that I dance to. So why bother? Why go out there and participate in politics that do not consider me at all? I feel like that's better than showing up to the polls and making ignorant decisions. See what I mean? Just in the name of participating and saying, hey, I got my sticker that says that I voted. So don't bother me. Don't say that I was lethargic about it and apathetic. See what I mean? So voting does not mean what it should mean for everybody because not everyone is being considered in the so-called agenda of the people who govern the land. So I am never someone who says don't go vote, but I'm also someone who doesn't say, hell yeah, go ahead and vote because this is what people died for in the past. No, that is completely your decision. And just remember that if you are voicing your opinion, which is what voting is. You're electing officials to carry out functions. If they don't appeal to you at all, then don't get involved because I feel like that makes the situation worse. Um, of course, ideally, this would work in a fair manner, but we all know it doesn't. So just stop having the attitude of, I'll pick the lesser of the two evils when they don't even mention issues that concern you. But again, like always, like everything I say, that's just my opinion. I'm not trying to say that I'm right, but if you ever hear someone expressing themselves against voting, just ask them why and hear them out because I feel like they have a really valid and really good point. That had it not been for these elections and me actively discussing it, I would have never really found that out and let alone consider it. Okay, let me see what you guys are saying. Hey man, woohoo, finally managed to I guess that says catch me on a live stream because it got cut off. But hey, Viking, good to see you around here. I think most of us want the same or similar things. We just want different ways of achieving it. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. I'm pretty sure, yeah, I can agree with that. It's like what I was saying earlier about it's not very difficult what we all are looking for to live happy and full lives. But that's the thing. The process of getting there is what we don't have very clear. So I'm very glad that you said that because it makes a lot of sense. You should do audiobooks. You know what? I cannot say that I have thought about it, but because I liked to write, I definitely do dream of writing a book someday. I'm not sure I would publish it, but when it comes to audiobooks, I don't know. I feel like streaming is a better medium for me. I cannot imagine just something, a book that is, of course, an audiobook and something that I can see myself just recording and just leaving it at that. It's, I don't know. I have to think about that when I get back to you on how I feel about that. But I personally like to make videos better if I'm going to use my voice and publish it in one way or another. I'm not opposed to the idea, but I'm not really excited about it. Hello, praises. Tony Montana reading would be awesome. The best way to vote is as an informed voter. It's always a good thing to do what you did and research the candidates. And of course, on the note of researching candidates, I cannot sit here and say that I went there being the almighty goddess of political knowledge. I certainly wasn't. There were a lot of names. In fact, 95% of the names I did not know. But at least I had an idea of what direction they were trying to go with certain matters on my state level. So I said, you know what? Yes, this could be a very good thing. No, this would not be a very good thing. Yes, give back more to the people. No, don't take as much from us. Da 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 da. So, you know, I guess it's difficult to be an informed citizen when we tend to get bored and also tired from working so much. And on top of that, when this is not a very appealing and fun topic, because let's face it, when I get up in the morning, I'm not very passionate about what's happening on Congress, in the court, in the White House. I'm not thinking about that at all. In fact, I remember the years when we could go weeks without hearing from the president or hearing about the president. So, because there are so many distractions and we're overall fatigued and fed up, we're becoming apathetic. And really, that's our responsibility to not be that way and to just be on top of all that. But let's face it, my mother, for instance, she simply does not have the time to get in touch with what's happening politically because that lady has usually a 9 hour shift and her hours are what we call the banker's hours, which is like 9 to 5. And Well, but she gets home at 6:30. So that lady is tired. She is certainly not thinking about going online and trying to find out what's happening. She usually relies on me to give her an idea of what's happening. So I can imagine that the same situation that she is in is the situation of many, 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 many people. So, but yeah, absolutely. I guess the question to ask is, how do we make it better to get people more invested in political matters? Because seriously, it seems like it's very easy to ignore all this stuff, and we only get concerned when we realize that we're taking home less money, we're being taxed more, we're having to pay for more things that we didn't know we were going to be charged for, such as healthcare. And not only that, but the amendments that they do to healthcare, which is pay more but have fewer benefits. See what I mean? So it isn't until we see that we get mad, and then we actually try to hold the people in power accountable for it. And I'm like, well, had we been more informed in the beginning and not let them get in a position of power from the start, we wouldn't have to be resolving this issue. But again, everything is not that simple. There's more than one cause for disaster and stuff. So, but anyways, let's see. Where am I at? Where am I at? The It's illusion of choice. Unlike here in Australia, voting is mandatory here for everyone 18 and over. Huh, interesting. I did figure that somewhere out there this would be a thing, but that's interesting. Now, apparently, these people called Jehovah's Witness, their beliefs do not allow them to vote. So I guess because this is a country that's supposed to respect all kinds of religious backgrounds in general, I guess that's why they don't make it a law, because say you cannot just force these people whose beliefs impede them from taking part in political action, you know? So I hope that's right. Am I making that up? But I do feel like there are groups of people who simply do not take part in politics because their beliefs don't allow it. So, but oh well. Mark Twain said if voting could change anything, they wouldn't let you vote. Great quote. And you see, it makes a lot of sense because let's face it, when we voted 2 years ago, 4 years ago, or 6 years ago, whenever, however often this happens, what has changed? Seriously, what has changed? The only thing that has changed are the names of the people in office, and some of them have remained the same for decades. So, when it comes to your standard of living personally, what has changed for you? So, I guess that's where we need to start off um, looking at this. Politics is largely about fear, either what they will take from you or what horrible things will happen if you don't vote a certain way. Yeah, like, yeah, that reminds me. Some people were talking about their beloved guns. Like, oh, if I don't keep, I guess it's the Republicans in the House, they're gonna come and take my votes. No, they won't. No, they won't. Because that's a huge business. And how can you even begin to accurately track down every single gun that's out there? And I don't even think that we have the manpower to be suddenly taking back guns from everybody. Even if that's on record, even if that's on the computer and you can just look it up. I mean, realistically, it's not something that you can just implement and, we'll have flowers and dandelions the next day. I don't know. I don't even know how that would begin to process, but I'm pretty sure it's not as simple as what it sounds like or seems like. Which no one is saying that any of this is simple, but when it comes to guns, this country specifically, no, they ain't trying to take your guns. They ain't trying to do that. So rest easy. Ain't nobody gonna come knocking on your door and be like, "Give me your gun." They're not. So there were some people who were extremely fearful about that. So just take it easy, bruh. Your gun is going to be with you for a long time. So, but anyways, guys, that's just my opinion. Like I said, I just felt like I would get this out of my chest since it's been trending. It took place yesterday, and I've never really talked about this before. But yeah, each year I learn something new, or each year that there are elections, I learn something. So I just like to share the stuff that I get more woke at, if we can call it that. But honestly, I want to blame a lot of this, the way things are, on our education too, because most of us just have no earthly idea of what's happening in this country at any given point. We're not taught how to prioritize, we're not taught how to research, how to stay on top of these things. This has to come from you these days. It's like your parents are not really pushing you to be informed, your grandparents are not either. So no one is really talking about this. So, and if it's being talked about, it's not with, how can I say, productivity. Like you have an informed opinion. It's all about, the people in power, they're the ones who had the final say, so ain't nothing gonna get changed because they're the ones who got all the money. These people are supposed to work for us, the people we elect. They're supposed to work for us. Why are we not holding them accountable? So, how do you resolve that? That is the question that I guess we're all dwelling on. Let me see. Personally, I think Twain was wrong. What voting changes is direction the country, the state, or municipality takes for the next cycle. The only way to not have any influence on that is to not vote. And you see, there's some folks who, especially older folks, they really hang on to that. Like, go out there and vote. And yeah, I mean, if voting is a thing, it has to have an effect somehow, somewhere. And I know that the politics of this country is completely bizarre to where our votes are not who choose what choose the president, it's the freaking electoral college. So why is that? How does that even work? Not even the citizens of this country understand that for the most part. But but anyways, you can try. If there's someone who's singing your tune, go ahead and humor them, honor them, vote for them, be civically involved, I guess. But anyways, like I said, that's just my opinion. Maybe as I age and become ever more wiser, I will see more benefits to this and learn more and express myself better about it. But that's all I know for right now. And I'm sure that there's people out there who know a little less than me and others who know a little more than me. But anyways, resolve it by voting for me as president and Zamri as vice president. Well, I'm not even sure I am well, what is it, equipped for such a role, but if you are nominating me, I guess you see something in me that I clearly don't. But anyways, would I be interested in that? Well, I guess had I pursued my interests in being a judge, that would have taken me through law school and I would have understood better the almighty law of the land, but nah, just nah. It's interesting how the people who seem like they would do well at a role, they normally aren't interested in taking it. Like, have you ever known someone who is at your, let's say that you're entry level, they're at your level, and you think they would be a great manager, a great supervisor, but for some reason they just don't want any part in it? I feel like that's the same thing with politics. There's a lot of great people out there who could be accomplishing amazing things if only they got involved and stepped up, got in a leadership role, but they don't. And honestly, can you even blame them? Because shoot, who wants to deal with that? Especially if most of the folks in your surroundings are not going to be supportive either. See what I mean? So, anyways, I guess that's just up to the individual.